the show, we have Lucas and Elisa of the Silver Snails. The Silver Snails are an independent pop rock group based out of Romagna, Italy. With strong ties in Portland, we catch up with them as they just finished their album release show in Portland. They have a new album out. It's called The Speed of Light. It's available on all the streaming platforms. It's been 10 years in the making for this record from their first record. Now, what's cool about this group is they're a family-based band. So what that kind of looks like is Lucas is doing a lot of the musical writing, singing, performing. Elisa is doing harmonies and singing with, but also doing a lot of the videography work. And their kids get involved with doing some harmonies and playing percussion and being involved. And it's a really cool, wholesome project. And what I really like about these guys is they show their kids that this is the way that they could do something if they want to do it, but they don't necessarily have to do it. So they get to see their parents growing up and having fun, and music just gets to be something the family can be a part of or not be a part of. It's really, really cool and wholesome. Their new album, The Speed of Light, I recommend you guys check it out. It's available on all the streaming platforms. Before we get to the interview, if you hear anything you like, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like the Silver Snails. And now, without further ado, this is my conversation with the Silver Snails. So tell me about the 4th. So I was in Portland. That was a CD release party.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
It went really well. You know, I have a very high-level band kind of already pre-warmed there. And so we did a few rehearsals. The novelty was that Elisa was with me, because frequently I just, for cost reasons, would come to Portland by myself. I'm from there originally, and we live in Italy. But I have been trying to get my family over once a year to have more contact with my native family. And we just dropped the album. So that created the opportunity to do something in Portland. It was mainly our own community. Partly it had to do with the space. It was very cool, but it was more like a private room, so we didn't get any walk-in. But the actual show I got great feedback on, and I did invest in video, so I'll get to fully digest it. You know, it's just one way that we've been really fortunate is that we've always attracted fantastic musicians and video people and, support people. Because you kind of have to have all of that to try to show up in the market. Now, of course, the market is a totally different story. But I'm very happy with kind of our vehicle. And we've just been blessed, both in Italy and the US. So I went to Portland to find someone to help me produce my second record. And I bought a mixtape, unusual, right? Impulse purchase in a guitar store. They had local mix. I take this thing home. It's all garbage except for one song. And it's a band called Starfucker. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
But they came out of Portland, and this was like their first record. Like, it was on a mixtape. Like, this was before they hit. And the music was so good that I was like, who made this? I gotta find the guy or gal who did this. And that led me to a guy named Dylan McGarrick, who has his own label called Bad Man Records. In fact, that first Starfucker record's on it. Among others, My Morning Jacket and The Builders and the Butchers and various kind of alternative rock. Anyway, he became a close friend. We finished the second record, and then he's supplied a lot of contacts for me, like Howard, for instance, thanks to Howard. And so that's a very bright spot for us. And then I'm also very excited just about the results we've gotten in terms of the sound and the video. The new songs, the old songs, the new videos, the old videos.
The album's fantastic. It sounds incredible. I can tell there's a lot of work put into it. And
oh, wow.
So you're from Portland. Did you born and raised in Portland?
Well, I was born in the Bay Area, lived in Texas as a kid, but, from sort of middle school on until college, I was in Portland. Then I left and basically never came back. I lived in Asia early in my working career. I worked in Asia, and we've lived in Italy for 20 years. We have 3 kids over there. So I've spent most of my adult life away. It's a real pleasure for me to come to the U.S. because I know it really well, but I experience it more like a tourist, like get me some, pho,
Yeah.
Where's the good Mexican? Google search.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay. So like in that, when did music start becoming an outlet for you? Was it in that middle school like time period or even before?
Yeah. So I've been uh, active in music since I was about 6, I would say. Originally approached the piano, so sort of developed as a keyboardist, but by my teens, I was singing and playing the guitar too. Um, and I had a very rich incubation, I would say, in the Portland area. Just by chance, I ran into all this high level music. Like there was a magnet music school and there were like no students and they had like the top piano teachers in the city. So I would go there and study with the very top jazz piano teachers. There's a lot, Portlanders love jazz. So there was lots of jazz. There was Irish. There was a guy from Ghana who was like a drum master, who I interacted with. Um, I started recording and writing back then. Um, and then I went to college and work. And so I kept the music alive. I did jazz ensemble in college. During my work, I worked in the financial industry, and I would go so far as to hire studio musicians to support me for company offsites, meaning we would have our offsite, and then after dinner, it'd be, Lucas Ward and friends, and, schlepping a grand piano from apartment to apartment.
Oh man.
I essentially, with my wife's kind of blessing, pulled the plug on the financial career when I was about 31. So, and I had some money saved, and I was very focused on goals and dreams. And at the top of my list was music. So I started doing music pretty much full time, but mostly like studying it, refreshing it. Started doing some jazz. We moved to Italy when, about that time, started having kids. So what was I going to do? I mean, jazz is a universal language, meaning you can find people to play Coltrane, standards or something pretty much anywhere in the world. And there's the real book. But I realized that if I was doing this as my main thing, I really had to think about what I was trying to externalize. And what I realized is that what was really important to me is songwriting, and beyond that, kind of singing and song production. And that my native, though I like all those kinds of music, I feel that my native idiom is like classic rock and pop rock. There's one more thing, Dave, that I should put in about Portland. My first day of high school, I sat next to a guy named Steve Smith in French class, and he became Elliott Smith. And that transformation took place while we were buddies in high school. He recorded 4 full albums on 4 tracks in his basement.
Wow.
Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior. We were selling cassettes. He had a live band. And then he and I both went to college, and he kind of put down his guitar for a while, started up with Heat Miser, and then after college found his way to DreamWorks. But now he's gone. We just, by the way, put out our first cover of his called Pretty Ugly Before, and there's a video for it.
It's a beautiful cover. Sounds great. You guys did a great job with it.
When I was 14 or whatever, sitting next to Elliot, demoing his songs in the music room, I was swept away. That was the thing that really, but I had seen other things that swept me. I saw Steve Winwood in concert when I was 15 and went backstage and met him because my girlfriend knew the drummer or something. So I was to him really close, and there's that feeling when you're next to like a superstar, like inches away. You feel like, or I did as a kid, like kind of like your feet are lifting off the ground. And I remember the feeling of going to school for like 3 days. I felt really euphoric. And he was just a cool, mellow guy, just having a beer. He's British, whatever. He's very sociable, but not a big personality. But it was just that proximity to the magnetism of having thousands focused on your performance. And so I had lots and lots of experiences like that. But most of all, the relationship with Elliot showed me like how important songwriting is. Like songs are important documents. And there is such a thing as a good song. And I believe there's even kind of a protocol or a quasi language behind good songwriting. But of course, good is a slippery slope in music because one man's poison is another man's perfume. And
That's true. But so
anyway,
I mean, okay, well, kind of to dig in with that, like, because I mean, jazz, I definitely agree, will introduce the musical world and like what's happening, why this melody works, what chord. It's a really great foundation to have to dive into kind of anything, and that's kind of what I think ultimately. Maybe if the jazzers might disagree, but philosophically, what it does, and like I
yeah,
feel to some degree, all great art becomes the Coltrane like direction where it goes from very structured to very free,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like but anyway, like so kind of coming in with that, and then like having these like early experiences with Elliot, like I'd kind of want to pick apart that a little bit with songwriting, like watching especially like in that young at that young of an age, like just to see someone do it, like as far as like being around a songwriter like that, what were some like kind of like songwriting lessons that you kind of gleamed from being around and maybe find yourself doing now?
yeah. That's funny because when I started writing songs, I realized, wow, there's like no roadmap. But I had the chance to imprint it. And if I think about it, a couple of things. First of all, I believe that pretty much all art is kind of an apprenticeship process where people study masters and they gravitate to stuff they like. Even writers, people have their authors. In other words, there's a chain, creative chain, and there's various creative lineages, martial arts, and so what I saw is that Elliot was picking apart Beatles songs note by note, and in order to understand how they worked and why they sounded good, and yeah, so that's the first thing is that you learn by kind of reverse engineering the stuff that you like, and uh, there's also the whole approach to lyrics and melody. And he was very much what I call the John Lennon school, which is like less is more, like repetition and like you get by reducing it to very simple language, it becomes more powerful. It's Hemingway-esque. And his stuff was like that. Oh yeah, here's what I was gonna say. So it's one thing to kind of be able to transcribe a song and play it. It's another thing to create one. And where it started with Elliot and kind of where I'm at with it too is it starts with playing with chord changes. And that's what I call a musician's approach. Like if you're just a singer and you play no instrument, then you're going to approach it a little bit differently. But if you're a guitar player, certainly keyboard player, then it's like you play with voicings and you play with chord changes. And Elliot was constantly doing that. Like he was all about chord changes on an acoustic guitar. And then those few artists that he admired, and he was trying to define things in a very narrow way in terms of what he thought was cool and what he didn't. As an example, in his live band in college, he would only allow 4 members. And I guess it's because he had imprinted various 4-member bands, but it's something that I always thought was absurd. He told me he hated jazz, and I was deep into it at that time. And I thought, that's absurd. How can you write off an entire genre? But I guess my point is that someone who has like kind of an original creative vision tends to form it not only by finding out what's good to put there, like Beatlesy, but also what to exclude, what I don't want it to sound like, or what. So he was also very much about defining it in the negative. So when I had that epiphany that's what I really, really wanted to do and focus on, and that was kind of the genesis of the project, then and prior to actually, I spent a few years transcribing songs, what I call magic songs, making playlists, and even maybe just the parts. For instance, there's the Elton John song, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. And it starts with this really cool piano riff. It's like real far in the bass. Da 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 da. So, maybe I would just figure that out. And maybe just chords from there on out. So it's like sometimes it's just like figure out the cool part. but I wanted to understand the drums, the bass. So I took drum lessons, I bought a bass. So I'm kind of like jack of all trades, not very specialized in any of the instruments now because I've trained everything on being a singer-songwriter. So a songwriter, I think, has to understand, just like Beethoven did, he could play all the instruments so he could understand how they fit together. That's, it's just a certain level that you need. My instrument is now the voice, because who else is going to do it? Like, especially for songs that I write. And I chose that, but it means that basically daily practice, discipline, perennial insecurity about being in tune, because you can never hear yourself.
Yeah.
There's a certain bag that comes with being a singer, but it's thrilling. And I highly prefer singing with a group, with backup or together or harmonize. And we do that in the family all the time. And sometimes Elisa will sing a lead, or Jasmine, our daughter, will sing lead, and we'll sing backup.
Yeah.
But I prefer the choral live sound.
It is much better with all, the chorus. It gets more thick, and then it gets more power.
Definitely.
Out.
Yeah.
To kind of go back to what was I going to say on that? It'll come back anyway. But to kind of, Elisa, to kind of trace your musical journey, when did music start for you?
I was young, actually. I always felt like it was inside my heart. Like I wanted to kind of not just listen, but to create music, or how we say in Italy, spirit music inside you. My dad would say, you should become a musician, but then because in Italy music is not like in a school they don't promote music, right? It's something that you can get outside. And so I study like everybody, and I end up to do something else. But when I met Lucas, everything was just coming up from my heart. Like, yes, I felt like we were connected from that part of soul music, And so I didn't speak English at all, but I felt something that that in that music part, on my soul, I said that is, and I fell in love to him. And now with this everything, and then I like to write music, but especially I like to kind of try to help Lucas with the video. I try to make, you see some video.
She produces the videos.
Yeah, I produce the video. And I want to, help him with the chorus, I feel like, I'm trying my best to, take this project out, because our music is to open the heart, to give peace, to bring love. So.
I definitely think you guys are doing that, and I think you're just even to have a whole family kind of involved with it, and just have all this much joy in it. I feel like in the artist sense, it's kind of like lead by example, and I definitely think that you guys are doing, and I think that comes across for sure. So,
thank you.
And it's an admirable trait for sure, because there's a lot of negative in the world, so it's good to have some positive and some joy, some reminders of all the good stuff. So when you say you studied music, did you study an instrument? Did you study singing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started classical piano lessons when I was 10. I played saxophone in the junior high band. I started studying with pro jazz keyboardists, because I wanted to sort of go beyond classical and understand a more of a modern idiom. And so I had a couple of those, and then the thing through the charter school. So I guess it was really focused on jazz and classical piano. until I was about 20, and I went to China to study, and I was worried that there wouldn't be any pianos available. So I bought a cheap guitar and started, so I spent a year and a half just doing that. I could play some guitar before that. And, and the guitar kind of invited singing in the picture.
It's definitely, it's kind of the singer-songwriter's like starter kit. Like, is you get the guitar. So it's interesting from going in China. What was the music scene like? Were you able to kind of explore it all and get involved in?
It was very interesting because in 91, or I guess I went in 1990, it was like the year after Tiananmen Square incident. And I went to Beijing University, which was the epicenter of kind of the intellectual purge, because that's the leading academic institution. And so you can imagine that things were pretty wrapped down. And that's like more than 30 years ago. So economically, it was still, you kind of still saw the old China light a lot. I could ride a bicycle from the outskirts of Beijing to central Beijing in 1 hour, and there was hardly any traffic. It was still feasible. Now you go there choked. And so in terms of the scene, almost everybody I was dealing with locally had almost no contact with the outside world. So as an example, that cheap guitar was a luxury item in China. China's kind of like a prison, like, it's hard to get things in and out. So like, oh, this guy's got a foreign guitar, can I borrow it? There was a guy who was a pro.
Yeah.
And he must have played it 8 or 9 hours a day. He gave it back to me and the strings were just like completely worn in a few days because he'd never played a guitar that good. It was $120 guitar that in those days. So maybe a $300, an entry level guitar. And, but he was amazing. I mean, technically, and of course he played classical. But here, apparently, Nixon went to China in 73 or something, and somebody asked him, like, who should we listen to among American artists? And he said, oh, Karen Carpenter's pretty good. And the other one was John Denver. And so everybody in China knows Karen Carpenter songs.
Oh, wow. And John
if
Denver.
You know Country Roads.
Right. Oh, my God.
You're a hero at the karaoke. Yeah. So now, of course, I think many more things have come in since then. But back then, it was kind of like they just kind of knew those two, plus whatever was coming through sort of the Soviet world, generally non-Western, and then classical. And people didn't even have good instruments. So that's what it was like in 91. Now it's totally different. But, at one point I thought it would be cool to, since we're international already, to like market our music in China. I changed my mind after they started cracking down on artists and creators, and independent content of any kind is not welcome there. So, I mean, of course, now it seems like too much of a reach anyway, but in my more grandiose days, I thought, why we can do our thing there too, but it's very. I don't even want to go there anymore. I mean, I do, but I'm hesitant.
Right, because of the difficulties. Yeah.
Well, the surveillance state, and
Yeah, like I talked to this guy. He played in a group in China, and how he did currently, and just how he describes it. It seems very, very tedious to do. So it's pretty, like, even back then, that's pretty profound that it's still, you know what I mean? Like, but the pin it, and then, so when you moved to Italy, did you find, like, as far as the music scene before, or when you guys met, was it similar? I mean, it can't be similar to China, but similar to America in a way, or how did that, like?
Yeah. So Italy is extremely porous culturally, and they really welcome stuff from the States still, movies, shows, music. So I found that I would meet Italians, and man, it just seemed like they had really good taste, like somehow they were keeping the best things, and so that was really cool. But of course, there's so many other traditions that they're exposed to. In particular, the classical thing is right there. I mean, you go to Venice, and there's like a Vivaldi concert every night, and as I mentioned, jazz was easy to find. I guess I really saw myself as being kind of leading edge indie pop. And that music that I sort of love, stuff like the Flaming Lips, for instance. If we go back 10 years ago when I was really ramping up like that was such an inspiration. But I just found, by the way, another band from Oklahoma City called Husbands. I'm totally into. Very kind of Beach Boysy in a great way. But so I got frustrated because the Italians were all generalists and they didn't have any knowledge of like anything that was like 90s or later. And they would only get exposure to stuff that came through the label system.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So indie is very, very low ebb there.
Yeah.
I mean, there is Italian indie, which is just label product that has whatever, a certain sound to it. There isn't much space for actual independent music at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I exaggerating?
Pretty good. Italian really attached to the tradition of Italian music,
It used to be that big music was good music, like Queen,
Right.
Now, big music is mostly terrible, and little music is squelched by the system and filtered out and kept out of the game. Mm-hmm. So, but I still find great little bands, like Husbands that I love. And so ultimately I wanted to shift my whole production base from Italy to Portland so that I could play with people that are really part of the scene. And they are, like, Dylan had a studio called Type Foundry. And I mean, there were people like Tourists and M. Ward. There's a local band there that's really good, called it'll come to me. Anyway, but so the people I was working with were recording real artists. I mean, James Mercer of the Shins lives like 2 blocks from my mom in Portland.
Yeah.
So there's a real scene in Portland. Like when I was little, it was like a lot of musical culture. Now there are actually bands or, sort of artists that are independent, relatively independent, but still they have a lot of cultural and monetary stature in Portland. Anyway,
that it's really interesting. Like, I guess like just how it works in different places, and like regionally and internationally, and like just how different like cultures kind of are exposed to like different whole. And I gotta imagine the internet's kind of altering that a little bit as far as like, as far as and but then again, what's being altered is like instead of the big queens that have the backing, it's whoever's got the algorithm backing in a way, which is kind of like another, I don't know, it's another thing. But like one thing I'd be interested in, and as a musician from going to all these different places, like, did you find like language and learning new language was more tricky or easier for you with having kind of a musical background in a sense?
I believe that the aptitude that I have for music and the aptitude that I have for language learning are in almost the same part of the brain. So I think it's almost like an extension. Like if you're that type of person, then yeah, you can pick up Spanish easily, or you could pick up the bass easily.
Yeah.
He learned Italian very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
He did.
In both language and music, there's an abstract code, grammar, harmony, but it has to be translated into micro movements, whether they're finger touches or tongue flicks. And then there's this kind of corpus of data that you have to acquire too, the vocabulary, the songs. Anyway, so yeah, and I love them both. I mean, I don't even know how talented I am in music. Like, I feel good about my level, but I think it's more of a brute force thing that I've spent so many years and done so many lessons, and it's gotten me to a certain point. I always felt like there were people around me who seemed to be able to get there quicker, but maybe that was an illusion. Maybe it's just kind of time in results out.
Right. Well, I definitely agree with that. Yes. I think the harder you work at a thing, the more result you're going to see, and everyone's coming from it in a different spot where they're starting. And often I think the people that just naturally like pick something up, they don't really go as far with it because it doesn't mean as much to them. They didn't really have to hustle for it. And
Yeah.
also the whole approach to learning a thing, I think, takes you further.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and like, I feel like the guys that are willing to take, like, basically your approach, you learned every job on the ship, right? And how it works. And like, you know how that ship can run and be ran. And like, so you know how to talk to everyone and learn, you know how to talk to everyone and suggest what to do. And like, there's a lot of guys that don't, or I shouldn't say a lot of guys, there's a lot of people that don't take that route because I can rip this on violin or whatever. And that's, you know, it's cool, but I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, seems like work when I have to do it, but like, it's just a different, so I think hard work will always outbalance like talent to some degree as far as like overall trajectory. So I agree with you on that. I just find it fascinating with like the musician's mind and language because music, you know, to some degree has a lot of language encoded in it. So adapting that to different situations, it makes sense that it was easier for you to pick up different languages, spending a lot of time working on music because it's very close to it. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm also motivated by the payoff of decoding something mysterious, whether it's Chinese characters or
Yeah.
jazz voicings, you know, or how does this pop rock thing really work? Why does this song produce such an effect and these other ones don't?
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
I was really interested in that. So, because to me, talent, I have a suspicion that it might just be enthusiasm. In other words, someone who likes to do something does it more. And so they start to get more fluent. And so other people label that as talent. But it's still the brute force thing, but it's just a product of them liking to do it more. So in that sense, yeah, I went all the way to China. I really wanted to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to be able to read books in Chinese. It was really fun for me to actually learn some songs in Chinese, you know, so crossover. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to get rid of the music bug.
That's awesome. So to kind of dive in from the last record, this the new record here, it took more. That was a fairly wide gap. And was it because of the distance, or was it just everything in life kind of adding up in between?
Yeah, it was a series of factors. The first thing is that I had like an impossibly ambitious bar in my mind. Like it had to be the best record ever made. Like it had to blow the White Album out of the water. Like otherwise, why do it? That was kind of and it was a sophomore effort. So that's kind of where my head was at. And so I started it in Italy with the same crew that helped me do the 7 melodies, and they're very good, but it was because of that frustration that I needed to get closer to the market, or what I was doing would have no consequence. And so I felt that Portland was much closer to the market, and there would be people there who had commercial knowledge, as Dylan does. I mean, he makes a living as a single man label, which is not easy. So so it took me a while then. I basically ripped my tree out of the ground, and then I went and I looked for someone to collaborate with in Portland, and that's like just on trips back and forth, and years go by. We filmed this Video Killed the Radio Star video after releasing the first record, so we'd have something in the tank. We were making that, but I basically met him in we released 7 Melodies in 2012, and I found Dylan in 2016. So then in 17, 18, 19, we finished the record. I formed the band. And then COVID hit, and all the band activity shut down. I was out of funding. I spent a couple years trying to find an investor, which looking back seems kind of funny. I mean, you can find investment, but you've got to have already a monetizable fan base. So it's a chicken and egg conundrum, because to get the fan base, you've got to invest in either touring or. And we've been talking today about maybe it really is just connections. But so in other words, you could spend all the money, do all the touring you want. If you're not in the right channel, maybe because you're not put
It's
there.
not working.
So anyway, I couldn't find an investor. So then I had to completely divert all energy to feeding the family. And that lasted about 3 years. And then the record was unfinished, but a very close relative came and offered to pay me to finish it if I finished it by the end of the year. So that was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing for an artist to have someone else actually care enough to
for
put
sure.
some money down.
Yeah.
So that was healing, because I was also really disappointed at that point. I was going through musical heartbreak, and I didn't even want to listen to music. The old music was no good, and it took me years to thaw. And because of that little push, I finished the record, and then it took me another year or two to kind of get together a marketing plan. So they just all kind of added up. Certainly, if I hadn't set the bar quite that high, I could have avoided like some remixing, whatever. And I think that's what I needed to do. And just like with the 7 melodies, all I hear is like something that's been done right. So I don't feel the pain of what I've spent or how long it took. So that's a really cool thing about music, is like, it's kind of timeless, like if it's really good, people will want to hear it again, so I wanted to make it as good as I possibly could by my own sort of standards. I think the next record is going to be a different approach, but that's what happened.
But well, I mean, with having these connections now for the next record, it's going to be easier because they're already established, and like I definitely think the process of doing, because I play in a group and we've been working on a pretty arduous record, right? Usually, it's there's been a lot of ups and downs, and like as far as getting stuff together, a lot of other people. We're a trio, but we added a bunch of people into the recording process for this one. And like, so yeah. I totally relate to that. Like, you have this vision, you're like, we're gonna see it, and then like get all the parts. Now it's got to be as good as the thing you had in your head, But like, and then we already recorded the record that would come after that. Is just like, no one's gonna be on this one, just us, like. But
okay.
But
so you needed to do that, It's like every song is an experiment. Every record, there's barriers to break down, but those barriers are down for the next one,
right?
So you can focus on other things,
right? And like, I don't know. Neither of them exist in the world outside of our heads yet. But it's just like, I totally relate to that process of seeing this thing and like, okay, that's not quite, you know what I mean? And like, I think it's to go back to what you say, ultimately, no matter how much time and whatever, it's going to be worth it when you get the vision out of your head. And like, and I like it when people do it and see it and like succeed in just making the thing out of their head into the world. So I'm really happy to hear that's, even though it was that long of a process, here it is, and we're talking about it, and it's great, and you're touring, you're playing shows on it,
He's already thinking of the new songs.
Well, those never stop. Stop. Like, and it's kind of funny. It's like when you get to that, we're done with this one, you're like, oh crap, what do I do next?
Yes, it's Jealous Mistress, this music.
Are you write your songs?
Yeah.
You do.
I feel the struggle.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. So one thing, I guess, being a family band and like kind of having all these different like ins and out of music from both of your backgrounds, like, is music in the family just like a fun thing that happens? Do the kids kind of see it as a serious thing because of the like weight of some of these projects? What's that look like in the home for you guys?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, when we started out and the kids were little, I'm sorry, honey, did you want to say something?
After.
She's going to weigh in.
I think.
We were really ambitious. So we saw this monetizing and becoming a business. And so there was a caution to not force the kids to do things that they didn't want to do, Michael Jackson syndrome. And this would be a little different because, I don't know, the analog Johnny Cash syndrome. But Bob Marley syndrome.
I mean,
I think ours is more like Bob Marley in the sense that it is a real family, and the music is kind of part of our personal culture. And then it's also a project. And we trained the kids, particularly the girls. There's Jasmine's now 23, Celeste is 18. So 2 girls, and then Elias is a little behind. But all of them have done professional vocal training. We would have teachers come to the house and train us, because it just feels like you can never work too much on voice.
I 100% agree. 100% agree.
So they grew up with that. And what happened is that Jasmine became a very enthusiastic singer and musician. And Celeste is kind of a reluctant, she doesn't even, we do, it's really fun. We do karaoke nights at home. Karaoke so that people can really just sing whatever they want, so that we're singing together. But of course I always work in some of ours, but Celeste a lot of times won't even do that, but sometimes she will. And so she can do it. But so she's a really good example of she's sort of fundamentally resistant to being part of this thing. And whereas Jasmine is happy to, and that's part of her identity. And she also does it outside of the Silver Snails.
she became
She's developed her own singing career.
She's singing in weddings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome.
All
gigs now.
the gigs, the community in Bertinoro, that we live in Bertinoro, in this medieval town.
It's a village with a castle on it, on a hill.
Yeah, and so they see her like a star, because she's singing from when she was very young, because they grew up with music. So the question, music is in my life or not? Music is in their life, So they grew up with this. So everybody called, oh, Jasmine, come and sing in this event or the other one. So it's a natural, call for them.
I have a close friend who wanted to make an album. He's a sort of an amateur musician, good singer though, for his girlfriend for an anniversary. Can you believe that? He flew into Italy and we did these songs, we were sort of organized ahead of time. So this is my first production experience. So I produced a record for him, but it was such a resource to have my family in-house because I could call on them to do all of these backing vocals and harmony.
Yeah.
So the record is now just dripping with these incredible Jasmine harmonies on everything.
That's beautiful. Well, I think that's a really I think that's a really cool way to have it be introduced. This is something we all work on. It's not a pressured thing. You can be into it, you can be out of it, and I think that's really special. And there's not too many. I don't know too many families like that. So, and I think that definitely goes into your guys' message. And it's you living and showing by example.
Yes. Yeah, and also there's for better or worse, you need to have a visual skin for a music project. Usually through music videos, sometimes through live. So then there's questions like, who are these people? And the idea of having it be intergenerational to us also just makes it more relevant to more people. Maybe it makes us irrelevant to most people because people don't want a family band. Maybe it's corny. I don't know. It's just who we are. Yeah. And I know that I draw so much strength, and there's creative richness in being able to have my daughters, for instance, sing. My son was handing out props at this concert in Portland because we gave people lays and then these glasses that light up because cool. We video killed the radio star, so we gave people glasses. And then we have this tropical song called Coco Loco, so we gave people lays. But he was showing everybody how to work the glass. He went table to table, and it was spontaneous. I was very happy about that because anytime I come towards it, it's always kind of a surprise because I sort of expect them to naturally sort of distance themselves as Celeste has done. So if I get, especially the little one coming toward it, he was enthusiastic at this concert.
Yeah.
It's kind of wow, maybe we're onto something.
Well, I definitely think you guys are. So
we haven't talked about this. Sorry, Dave. I just want to put on the table. the elephant in the room is monetization. Because I mean, we wanted to have commercial success as independents, and I thought that the time had arrived that is now possible with social media, et cetera, and that the label system is kind of decaying and stuff. But I'm not so sure about that anymore. But so it's very heartbreaking and very frustrating. And when I see my kids embracing music, part of me is like, uh-oh, are they going to have to, with this roller coaster of emotions, expectations here, expectations crushed, cry. Okay, expectations reset. Okay, they grow again. Oh, they're crushed again. Cry. And mental illness and all the rest of it that just comes with the territory. We're speaking of Elliot earlier. And so I wonder if my kids can find kind of a balanced approach to where they can actually enjoy and practice music, but not be heartbroken or tricked or disappointed. And sometimes I think the fact that we haven't monetized is part of the message to them. Seeing your parents giving it this much and doing it as high a level as they possibly can and still not getting paid, at least they won't know. I mean, at least they won't be naive.
They already know
about what, right? So if they're doing that, and our own example is also showing them the economic reality of it, then maybe that's not bad.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Of course, the default, I would love to be monetizing and we'd all be getting paid to sing, but maybe they need to see what because what we're doing is what so many others are doing. I mean, that's actually
many people, many bands.
Very much the norm. The numbers are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at you guys media-wise, like on Instagram stuff, you guys are killing it. Like now, like where that actually funnels to, like financially is a different thing. You know what I mean? Like, but ultimately, I think regardless, it's like my family did this cool thing. They're passionate about this project. They put it out into the world, and like they're still doing it. I think there's like that's a life lesson that to get straight from the source like you guys are supplying it. I don't think that's yes, you're going to be aware of like the economic, like maybe not commercial success in that sense, but you're going to be aware of like a fruitful, exciting, fun, soulful life, which if we're going to be, or we live in the work or work in the live, you know what I mean? So I think if anything, you're laying the way for that as well. Like here in Cleveland, I've been working, and I use the term working in air quotes, at a nonprofit art gallery for like 10 years alongside of like my band played there, and the guy's super nice. And so I book shows there, and, and it's got a stage, but I've never made $1 from it. I've only lost money putting into it. But every week we have people come in, walk into this beautiful room of art, be blown away, and like want to keep doing their thing. And like, it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I'd rather have just gone home and, hung out in front of Hulu. Like, no, I'd rather have like, seen someone go out there, try a thing, and like hopefully come back next year or so with it even more fine tuned. And that's what you guys are doing every day in house. So that's fine. That's amazing.
So what I hear you saying is the most important thing with music is to represent.
Yeah.
For it. And we're already doing that. So by definition, successful, because the real mission is to represent.
Right.
Thank you.
But I'm gonna.
Yeah, thank you guys. You know what? I think that's the perfect like period, like or exclamation point to put on this interview, because that's awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for making wonderful music and for your time. I really appreciate getting to pick your minds.
Okay, fantastic, Dave. Thank you so much for having us.
Ciao.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.